order at 6:30 on March 17th, 2021. I'll put the agenda up on the screen so people can kind of see. I don't think tonight we'll get into a ton of policy, but this is, tonight and the next meeting are really going to be about organizing and deciding how we want this group to move forward. This is the first time the town's done it. So I think part of the fun of our job in this first year is kind of writing the rule book and how this committee is going to look going forward. I'll just start so everyone can kind of see the agenda. We'll start, I'll skip the roll call because I took everybody's attendance as they came in, and we're going to do introductions. So I'll turn my camera to the flag that I've got over here, and we'll do a quick pledge of allegiance if everyone wants to stand and potentially mute, so that way we only hear one voice and it works smoother. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks. We start all of our town meetings that way, so none of that's changed. Changes to the agenda. Again, like I said, it's gonna be low key. I won't, I think we'll hold elections for chair and vice chair next meeting, but my job going forward will be just to staff this committee and not running the meetings, but I'm happy to run them for the time being. But I'm just putting out there if anybody sees anything they want to add to tonight's agenda. We've got introductions, a review of the tasks and scope of work that the select board have given us, a discussion about how the committee would like a typical meeting to work. I'm running off of our traditional agendas that we use for other boards and commissions, but we can change that, and then set a regular meeting time each month. And then we'll have some public comment if there's any other business of the board, and then adjourn. So just seeing if there's anybody here who wants to add anything that wouldn't, fall under other business or public comment. I don't think I can see everyone with this sharing, so just want to make sure. All right. If not, we'll go into introductions. I'll start and introduce myself. I'm Corey Parent. I'm the Director of Operations for the town of St. Albans. In that role, I'm effectively the Deputy Town Manager. So I staff the Planning Commission and work on a variety of projects across the town. Also in other worlds or another job, I serve as state senator for Franklin County. So I represent you all in that capacity, and excited to sit and listen as we look to do this. And the other committees, obviously my town job, I'm a resource for that. But if any questions come up about what the state's doing on things, feel free to ask. It's kind of a neat dual role there. So I'll turn over if members of the committee want to introduce themselves. Maybe we'll start with you, Dan. I'll pick on you first.
Thanks, Corey. My name's Dan Merchant. I'm a St. Albans town resident. My wife and 2 children live here in St. Albans town. I worked for the Burlington Police Department for a little over 20 years and retired from there. And now I'm a detective with the Vermont Department of Motor Vehicles Enforcement and Safety Division. And I cover the northern half of the state.
Thanks, Dan. Danielle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Danielle Charbonneau. I currently work at Immigration Citizenship Services. I've been with them for 16 years. Prior to that, I worked for Legal Aid, and I also worked on the Reparative Board, Juvenile Justice Reparative Board here in St. Albans. And I have had some background in zoning when I lived in Sheldon prior to that.
Thank you, Danielle. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Dr. Jen Williamson. I am a town resident. We've lived here for 6, almost 7 years now. And I'm a physician, and that's about it.
Thank you. Preston?
I'm Reverend Preston Fuller, I guess. My family and I moved here to St. Albans in July 2019, and I am serving as the pastor of St. Paul's United Methodist Church.
Thank you, Preston. Armin?
Hi, Armin Messier. I've been a St. Albans town resident for about 10 years and raising our family, my wife and I in St. Albans. We love the community. I teach at BFA. I've been there about 20 years. I teach music and I moonlight in driver education. And I've returning to public service. I used to live in Swanton. I was a village trustee up there. And I'm just happy to, I'm very, very happy to be part of this committee.
Thanks, Armin. Jay?
Evening, my name's Jay Sweeney. I'm the representative for St. Albans Town Fire Department on this committee. I'm in my 41st year as on the fire department. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Albans Town. I'm retired. I served as nearly 35 years with the Franklin County Sheriff's, retiring as the chief deputy in 2017 full-time, and retired completely from law enforcement 2019.
Thanks, Jay. And we have both Sheriff Langevin and Chief Lamoth. Just for a quick update for the committee, I'm sure most of you know, but the town actually doesn't have its own police department. So from time to time, we go out to contract. And for the last 10 years, we've been with the St. Albans Police Department. And in July 1, we're transitioning to the Sheriff's Department as our police provider. So we're kind of in the situation where, we're going to ask both departments to be involved. And come July, though, we'll just be dealing with Sheriff Langevin, unless there are broader community discussions, something that might go on. But I'll let Sheriff Langevin introduce himself.
Hi, good evening. Sheriff Roger Langevin. 24 years of full-time law enforcement. Last few years, I'm just starting my 3rd year as the Franklin County Sheriff. Yeah, lifelong resident, much like Jay, of this area. Grew up in St. Albans City. Now living in St. Albans Town. I've been on Halfway Point Road now for 26 years.
Thank you, Sheriff. And Chief Lamoth?
Yes, hello. Kind of the same as Sheriff Langevin. Grew up in this area, been here my whole life. I was actually a classmate with Dan Merchant in the academy in '99. With state police for over 20 years, retired there and started with the St. Albans City Police Department about a year and a half ago, and was appointed chief a few months ago. So here I am.
I will tell either embarrassing story for me or for Dan and Chief Lamoth, but I was at your police academy graduation as a 10-year-old. My sister married one of your classmates, so who works for the Essex Police Department now. So I don't remember you guys then, but I remember the whole event and the marching that you guys had to do in and out of there. So
That was a long time ago.
It was. Next on our agenda is to review the police advisory framework. The town select board, we've had a police advisory committee in the past, but it never met regularly. Obviously with public interest in policing practices, the select board saw a need to create a committee that really gives citizen, the opportunity for the citizens of St. Albans Town to communicate with our police department, to learn from our police department, to share concerns, and not just have it be through the elected select board, but just a group of citizens, and try to get as diverse of a backgrounds as we could, to voice concerns and to reach out to the speak on behalf of the community. I have the letter here. I've got it up on my screen here. So ultimately the purpose here is, the town of St. Albans committed to the pillars of a free, democratic, self-governing society, requiring at its most fundamental level the right of citizens to participate in their governance and hold public entities accountable. Really the charge, they wanted, with this added structure, a clear vision, scope of work, The Police Advisory Committee will be a tool in the town's effort to provide residents and guests and businesses with the fairest, most unbiased, evidence-based, and 21st century form of policing possible. Ultimately, just to ask the questions and making sure our policing's staying up to board. This doc I kind of to a different, but I want to show you we have, and if I didn't send that along, please let me know and I can send it for you to read. This is how the membership's made up, 7 members, and you all fit into a bucket here. The probably most unique one is Armin. You are our business owner representative because of your photography business, so you fit in there. Just so you guys all know, you are entitled to a $25 per meeting stipend. I can get information out to you individually after this, but we typically pay quarterly. I know I had conversations with one member that with their job can't accept the stipend. That's perfectly fine as well. You don't have to take money, but the state does pay what we pay all of our boards. So, quarterly, you could see a $25 per meeting stipend coming out to you. This just kind of lays out more of that, but I will pull up this. And realistically, to see what our charge is the committee will meet with the St. Albans Police Department to review data as it sees fit. And we'll spend approximately 1 to 3 meetings researching where the town currently is in its efforts to provide the fairest, most unbiased, and evidence-based and 21st century form of policing possible. When the committee feels it has effectively researched current conditions, it will begin to meet with the command staff from the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. The committee and the Franklin County Sheriff's Office will begin to formalize their partnership before the town's contract with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office before the contract takes effect on July 1, 2021. The committee will have will then function with its select board approved policy, the town manager, and any staff member appointed by the manager to staff the committee. That's me. The committee's primary objective will be to monitor and enforce all provisions of any police and/or law enforcement contract in place between the town and its contracted police or law enforcement counterparty. The committee is expected to review data contractually required to be provided to the town by its chosen policing service at each regularly scheduled monthly meeting. So we'll talk about what, part of our discussions, I think, in the next few meetings will be what type of data do the departments collect, what's required by state, what do we want to see, what would a monthly report that would be meaningful to the members of this committee look like, and then work with ultimately the Sheriff's Department at that point to provide that document each month and ahead of time so that you can review it and have questions. The committee will work with our contracted law enforcement agency to implement unbiased, evidence-based, and community-minded policing services. The committee will work to engage area residents, local nonprofits, business owners, and other property owners within the town and develop a methodology to proactively seek input from the community on policing practices within the town no less than twice a year. So ultimately the select board's looking for us either to create a survey we put out or hold public meetings once COVID's passed to collect input from the community and be proactive in reaching out and hearing concerns. With anything, we always hear the bad news at the wrong time, but we want to start to hear things before, sometimes if you listen carefully, things are bubbling up 6 to 8 months, maybe a years before an event happens. And we're trying to, figure those out early so that, we don't have those critical issues happening. The committee will analyze data, required data, feedback from our area partners, the result may provide, and as a result may provide recommendations to the select board or our chosen law enforcement partner. The select board did make it clear that this committee has no policymaking authority. However, the select board will act on any recommendations formally received from the committee within 30 calendar days. So what that means is if we, want Roger's department to make a certain policy change, or we want to look at how we change policing in the community, we can put together a formal letter of a request of policy, vote on it, send it to the select board, they'll review it and, either choose to take longer research or act upon that moving forward. So your voice, there's still a mechanism for your voice to be heard, but Just as unelected officials, they don't want you to be able to say, this is the way we're going to do things, and, you know, not have a, you know, their sign off on it. So it's pretty narrow for now, but I think starting out for the first time, there's a lot of learning for all of us to do. Does anyone have questions about these or the intent? You know, I kind of came on towards the end of finishing this project for the town. So I wasn't there for the initial discussions or the decisions on changing providers, but I have a little bit of feedback and happy to answer any questions you guys have there. Jen?
My questions are basically, is the city going to be sharing what they have collected so far with the sheriff's department? Or is that something that we are just going to pick up on, like this set of data and a new set of data? Like, is there going to be any sort of transition between the two groups?
I'm not 100% honest there. I don't know if Chiefs Lamoth and Sheriff Langevin want to, you know, take a stab at that one.
I can speak. I mean, we're going to work collaboratively. We actually just met, what day did we meet, Roger? Like 2 days ago, to go over what we considered areas of interest with the transition. I can say that whatever we can do to make the transition more fluent and easier, we will. And if that includes data, just tell us what you want. We'll get it to you or a sheriff, whatever you want. It will make it effective and as smooth the process as it can be.
It's good. Any other questions, Jen, or anyone else? All right. Seeing that, I think, you know, a place we could go, and I'm just going to bring back up our agenda. You know, how these committee meeting will typically look. I envision this being actually different, at least for the first year, than some of our other committees. What I would, the chief and the sheriff know what our goals are. I think it would be interesting to start each meeting with a 10 or 15 minute either presentation or conversation about practices that the sheriff's department or the city's doing to, you know, try to meet these ends of being more unbiased. And, you know, there's a whole charge of issues that that are here that, you know, just inform us on how policing's changing and what it looks like. And I think we can come up with topics from time to time to ask the sheriff's department eventually, you know, to teach us about. I know, you know, for example, would have been, I know it kind of went away, but when we were talking about the street crimes unit a number of years ago, and we could add a presentation on what's the street crimes unit, what do they do, what's it look like, and, you know, that kind of stuff. So I think any kind of initiatives, you know, I think the big piece for this committee is to be open and transparent and inform the public about what policing actually looks like in our community, and to have them educate us so then we can ask questions, because I'm not a police officer, and I'll admit I don't know what I don't know. And you know, I think a lot of us are there. And so that'll give us, I think, you know, that'll be start for a lot of fruitful discussions. I also think, you know, I think of interest for us, Chief Lamoth, might be for our next meeting, I can think of, can we get, you know, data that you're collecting on, you know, events in the town of St. Albans? We understand you have, you know, I'm trying to be careful with our jurisdiction. You know, I know you guys do work in other communities, but we're focused on the town. And, you know, how many arrests are we seeing in a month? What type of arrests, you know, what type of speeding tickets, enforcement actions? Do we have racial and gender data and other data on that? And can we provide that to us? And I think, you know, that's going to be, I think, what, you know, to start out with what data we are going to be able to get a hold of. But I don't know what other members of this committee might potentially want to see for data, and then you can tell us if it's available or not. So
We can provide that. So as far it's the question that normally comes up as far as racial data, that only comes, the state of Vermont only requires you to collect that and only gives you the avenue to collect that on a traffic ticket or warning. So or crash. So that's where that's going to come from. That's easy to produce. The 14 to 19 was just released by the state of Vermont. We just did our own 2020. So I can easily provide that anytime. And as far as arrests and cases and calls for service, we can do that monthly if you'd like, and that'll give you location and numbers and a breakdown of like our top 10 types of calls, or even more in depth if you'd like. All I would ask is everybody realize that with COVID, it's changed dramatically. Our proactive work is not there. We're not putting our officers out there to do a lot of proactive work for the safety of the public and the safety of the officers. Hopefully that's going to change, but by the time it changes completely, we'll probably be out of the town contract.
Understood. Does anyone else have questions on information they'd like to see from the city police department over the coming month? Jen?
Sorry, I just want to clarify what I heard Chief Lamoth say, is that they're only collecting race data on people getting tickets and car accidents, so we can't get that data on other arrests, or is that not how I heard that?
Right. The state of Vermont requires that you collect race data on tickets, warnings, and it compares it to crash data. That's how they get the baseline for all the stats that the state of Vermont uses for race data. Race and gender is also collected on that.
So if we wanted race data on other arrests, is that something that we can get as a committee?
We can break down our arrests. That's a matter of going through each arrest, yes. But that's not something the state of Vermont requires.
Any other questions on information? I mean, Dan and Jay, with your background law enforcement, you know, are there things that you guys think we should be collecting for information to just help this committee out?
I would think that as far as just starting off here is exactly what Chief Lamoth described, is getting some type of spreadsheet as far as calls for service, and have that broken down, like what types of crime, what types of calls. I mean, some of those you can see are going to be either self-initiated or, you know, completely responsive. And then how many arrests are generated from those calls for service. And then, you know, take a look at that, as well as, I'm assuming, traffic enforcement, traffic complaints. You know, is there like hotspots, looking at areas where, you know, is there a concern for traffic safety? Things along those lines. I mean, just starting off to get a baseline for what the challenges are here for the town of St. Albans.
And Corey, if you could forward those other documents, because I did not get those.
Yep, I'll forward them.
That would be really helpful to be able to review that, actually.
And part of this too, I didn't want to put on the agenda this time because everyone's getting to know each other and you're kind of getting the feel for it. But next meeting, I would like to have us elect a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk to help take minutes. I'm taking them now, but my handwriting is not great. And 2 days later, I might not be able to read it as I typed it up. So having help there is beneficial, because again, we'll keep record of all this, and our minute meeting, you know, our meeting minutes will go on our website. And again, this will all be, you know, we have Northwest Access TV here. You know, this is all transparent and public, and you know, this is, you know, again, trying to be proactive. You know, we haven't had a ton of issues rise in the town of St. Albans, but that doesn't mean they're not there. It just means we might not have heard about them or talked about them. So, you know, that's what this group's for. Dan?
The other question I would have is, Chief Lamoth, do you guys track like when you have to deploy, say, naloxone, Narcan for overdoses and whatnot?
We do.
Okay.
Which I can't tell you the last time we did. I mean, it was really hot and heavy, you know, 3 years ago when I was just getting done at VSP, and then 2 years ago it lessened, and this year it's lessened greatly. But we do track that, yes.
Ray, I have a question about the clerk position. Does the town provide like a recording secretary, like in the other committees like DRB and?
Yeah, I think right now we're just doing the staff as me right now. So I can talk to Carrie about trying to get one. It's just hard because we only have usually 1 or 2 recording clerks, and with our other committees, you know, we don't want to overwork them and have them. There are day employees as well. We don't want to make them work nights. It's a little different for Carrie and I because we're in leadership positions, but you know, we're trying to be thoughtful in their time. does anyone, so I think, and again, these agendas will change and flow. This is, this could look at this, I expect to look a whole lot different than a year from now. But really just want to, I think, Dan and made a good point, is we're just trying to get the baseline, these first few meetings, and figure out where we are and orient ourselves. And then from there, we can build upon it. Does anyone else have any other thoughts for meetings, other things they'd like to see that, we don't have on a typical agenda that hasn't been discussed here? And again, we can bring this up next meeting. I understand, we're new here and just getting our feet wet. So seeing no more discussion there, just moving on to item 8. What's a good time that works for everyone? I think we want to get to the point where we meet. We don't have, the select board said they'd like us to meet monthly. We don't necessarily have to. I think at first we have a lot of work to, just catch up, and each month there's a way to fill out the agenda. And I think regular time, but I think it works best if, we pick second Wednesday of the month or third Wednesday of the month or whatever day of the, I know I have select board meetings the first and third Mondays of the month. And I have, we have planning commission the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And we have DRB, I think the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. So those are just, that's why I kind of picked Wednesday. It was another night that hadn't been taken, but I want to be sensitive to your school times. I can also send out a poll that we set this, but eventually I'd like to get it so that it's the third Wednesday of the month or the fourth, whatever we pick. It's that set one, and we just, whatever date that falls on, we have our meetings, and that's when they are. Does anyone have any thoughts there, or would you prefer to see me send out a poll, or do Wednesday nights work in general, or are they not good?
Corey, this is Jay Sweeney. For my scheduling, Wednesday nights are fine.
Yep.
The third Wednesday of the month is not good for me. I sit on the State Fish and Wildlife Board, and we meet on the third Wednesdays of the month.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a meeting this month because we're doing public hearings on regulations and rules changes that are coming up. So I've got a bunch of other meetings going on this month, so we don't have a regular meeting this month. But third Wednesdays of the month don't work for me. Wednesdays, any other Wednesdays, fine. Mondays, we have a fire meeting every Monday night, so that doesn't work. But Wednesdays in general are fine if they're fine with everybody else, just not the third Wednesday.
Do you have to deal with Lewis Porter most third Wednesdays of the month? Is he there?
Yes. It's a good group, and it's very informational. It's been a good learning experience. I'm on my second year of a 6-year term.
It's good. Lewis has actually been very helpful to the town. Just so you guys know, another part job where the old public works site is down on the bay, we're looking to turn into a boat launch to ease the congestion we see at Hathaway Point. Also to remove some impervious surface, right? It's all impervious right now, right on the bay. So it can be a water quality project, but still provide access to the lake. And the Fish and Wildlife team's is very excited about the project to help the town out there. And so Lewis and his team will be coming up in a few months to help us start to design what that might look like as a future project. And the nice part is it's right next to where the new town hall is going. So it'll be overflow parking for larger events at our town hall. So it'll serve two kind of roles there. Wednesdays work for me. The first Wednesday of the month's not good because I'm on the Northwestern Medical Center board, and we meet first Wednesdays of the month, but I'm good if second Wednesday of the month works for people. I'm good, but I want to make sure we're taking everyone's thoughts, and Danielle, Preston, Dan, Roger, Jen, Armin, and Chief Lamoth want to make sure that works for you folks.
Yeah, Corey, this is Danielle. Wednesdays are pretty fine with me.
Okay, and again, we don't expect everyone to make every meeting. It'd be great, but this is a volunteer board. We're small towns, and if we get 6 out of 7 most weeks or most months or 5, we're pretty good there. we understand, as long as you just let me know ahead of time, because if for some reason a quorum can't make it, so we need at least 4 to hold the meeting. If we can't get to, if you're going to be absent, just let me know. And, if 4 of you are going to be absent, I might have to cancel a meeting or postpone, but it looks like we'll set to make that meetings the second Wednesday of the month. And so those of you like me who always wonder, why do we always do it on this? Why do these people always meet 10 years from now? Someone's gonna be like, why do we meet the second Wednesday of the month? You'll now know why for this committee. So that'll be April 14th, our next meeting. And I'll send out calendar holds this week for the rest of the year on those, so that people can at least just put them in their calendar. We'll do Zoom for the foreseeable future. Maybe in the fall, we'll potentially have an option to go back to town hall, and as new town hall opens next spring, hopefully we'll be back to somewhat normal with COVID, to be able to meet in person. I think these discussions are great, but there's always the in-person touch that's nice as well.
Corey, are you gonna keep them at 6:30?
Yeah, does that work for everybody?
Yeah, the other police advisory board gets done at 6:30, so that works fine.
Okay. I think for us, 6:30 to, if it's a long meeting, it'll go to 8. I'm hoping a lot of these go to 7:30ish. If they go to 9, they go to 9, but typically planning commission go to 7:45. Typically an hour and 15 minutes. Any other thoughts there? I think we're good. 9's public comment. We do have Northwest Access TV, and I see Zach. I don't know if Zach's here as part of that or as a concerned citizen, but do you have any public comment you'd want to make at this moment? Nope, we're good there. Is there any other business that any board member wants to take up at this time? Questions, any, things you want us to look at? Again, this is your guys' committee. I'm running it today, but hopefully by about agenda item 6 on the next meeting, we'll have a chair who takes this role over, and we'll work with the committee and me to set agendas and our police department and to move forward. Is there any work you guys want me to do for research in the coming month? At one project I thought about, do we want to look at what other police advisory committees are doing across the state and kind of how they're handling things, or, just do we want to kind of blaze our own trail?
I got a suggestion or how you want to take it. One of the things we do on the Fish and Wildlife Board, which works good, is we have an email that is everybody can see. So when a person comments or has a question for the board, every board member can see that question, or if it's sent directly to a board member, it's shared amongst the whole group so that everybody's seeing the questions that may be posed to the committee or to an individual on the committee. And so we're all up on what the concerns are coming in from individuals, either to a board member or to the committee. I don't know if that's possible to do that, or have an email list where we are all members on, so that we can communicate amongst each other or as a committee.
Yeah, so we are a public board. So remind me, I should probably spend one meeting in education piece explaining to us what that means, but that does mean we are subject to public open meeting laws and public records requests when we're talking about this topic. So typically the best way, if it's what is allowed, is if someone sends me a concern and then I share it out to you, it doesn't need to be warned. But as soon as you guys start discussing it in an email, you violate open meeting rules. So it's one of those, maybe it works best if folks direct those to me and staff, and then I can put together a list that I send out maybe a week ahead of time or a time before our meetings, that you can see what's coming up. But any discussion, I'm allowed to provide you information for sake of the meeting. I'm allowed to have a one-on-one conversation with any of you about issues here. before a violation, technically we could have up to 3 of us. And, I'm not a member of this committee, but 3 of us talk to me. But anytime we get to that quorum level, it does become an issue. So I just, not that we can't do that, Jay, it's just, I want to make sure everyone kind of knows I'll make sure to put a primer in there for the rules of the road so that, we don't end up in 7 to 8, every now and then you see some committee violated a public meeting on a text chain or a Christmas party or, something that they did because more of them showed up. And so we just have to be cognizant not to discuss business because then technically an email becomes a public meeting if you're discussing business. So again, it can be for informational purposes and you, but the way we handle with other boards is typically information gets sent to the staff and the staff provides it as like a board packet to the board to prepare. And then we discuss at a meeting like this where it's been warned on the agenda. Again, all of our agendas will be warned ahead of time. We're just, want to make sure there's just compliant there. But yeah, I think any questions you folks get, it makes sense. I find as someone who's a public servant in both jobs, it's best to actually prep, Sheriff Langevin ahead of time if you have a question or myself to help prep them. So that way you're getting better answers instead of I'll get back to you next month with the answer to that. So just from an efficiency perspective, if you've got burning questions that you want brought up in a meeting, feel free to reach out and, I can, right now, whether it's Chief Lamoth or Sheriff Langevin, get that information to them so that they can collect that before the meeting. Danielle.
Right. I'm sorry. I was just looking at it as a perspective of I don't want my personal email to become a discoverable, I don't need anybody making requests for information from my personal email. I don't know if the town's going to provide us with an email separate that we can use as committee members or not. I guess I don't know if
we haven't, but in other committees, but I can talk to Carrie and see if we can provide that, if that makes sense. Because again, anything, as Jay says, that relates to this topic, if it's on your personal email, does again become discoverable in like a public records request. So.
I was just gonna say, Corey, I don't know what the background is of a lot of the members in this group. I'm wondering if it might not be a bad idea to provide people with FOIA, just the background on FOIA and background of rules of committees, just so that people have that information so that they understand those kind of rules and, going forward just before things get going or somebody violates something.
Yeah, I can make, if you guys are good, I'll make that the education first 15, 20 minutes of the next meeting. And instead of, we'll let the sheriff and the chief off there and I'll put together something just so that you guys understand your role and duty. And I think, again, I'll probably send to you early, but our other committees also have rules of procedure and how they operate. We'll be looking to construct those as well. So I think, again, the first few meetings here, unfortunately, are going to be a lot of housekeeping to get the framework of how this committee works in the community. Armin, you have a question?
Yeah, let me just lower my hand here. I just wanted to jump in with the town email. I think that's a good idea. Perhaps the thing we decide as a group that we're all going to endorse town email, because I think transparency is really important in what we do. And if we're all using town email, then it's all applicable to be looked at, and we're not holding back anything, and there's no agendas here. So I would just advocate that we use a town email address and go forth that way. The other thing is, I had a question about Zoom, because I haven't been in a public meeting with Zoom. I used it a lot for work, but how does it work with a chat room? Like, can we be chatting, but is everything can it be seen by the public in an effort of transparency?
I don't know. My recommendation would be to keep it off chat. And, right now, Zach just commented, just listening in general. But I think if we're talking, it's one thing if it's just formal questions in here, but if it's like actual policy discussion, I would try to have it verbally.
I would agree too.
we are recording here, and then we have Northwest Access TV. So, but I think, verbalizing any questions you may have, unless it's, the stuff here is just, just listening, no questions now, that's fine. Doesn't need to be necessarily in the public record, but if two people on the committee were discussing, something that we were talking about, I would want that verbalized as well. Jen, is your hand still up? Yep.
It is still up. So this might be something that gets discussed later, but the email question just prompted me to think, is there going to be sort of a, I forgot the term, but basically like an anonymous reporting line. So if a member of the community wants to, say something to us as a committee and doesn't necessarily want to send it to Corey Parent, is there an email or a phone line or something that town members can report those things to?
That's actually a good question. Haven't thought about that. We are in the process of building a new town website that's going to have a lot more forms, and I'll talk to our vendor about, it should launch about May 1st. So not that far away, about a form that someone can submit anonymously on our website that for the police advisory committee, and that will come to my box, but I'll make sure the vendor can allow folks to do that without, if they don't want to put their name down or something to protect their privacy. So that's a good question and suggestion. Jay, do you have another question, or is that your hand from the last one? Right.
I'm all set.
Right. Any other discussions and other business? It sounds like I'll do a training on public records and boards. I'll try to get us initial draft language pulling from some of how our other committees work. We typically use, Robert's rules and make motions. I know we're kind of being a little less formal here. And then for you folks, I'll send out an email with contact information of other board members. Again, don't discuss, but if you want to call each other and say, hey, I'm interested in being chair, would just nominate me, or here's why, we can feel free to do that. Because next meeting, again, my goal will be to have a chair and vice chair and a clerk for the committee, and then they'll run the meetings, and I'll just be here to provide staff access and answer questions on the town's behalf, and we'll have our police provider here to answer policing questions. I think another probably, because if we go into April, I'm trying to balance us getting information from Chief Lamothe, but also not spending too much time with the St. Albans Police Department, since we are in the middle of that transition. Not to say anything bad there, but I think, our focus really, by the time we get our feet underneath us here in this committee, is going to be really on the Sheriff's Department. And I think, the Sheriff's Department, maybe in May or June, since so much of it is around what the contract requires, I think it's a good idea. Maybe one of our educational pieces there is reviewing our contract with the Sheriff's Department and what that looks like. And then we can start to scope out how do we hold Roger and his crew accountable to that contract. From a public policy perspective, the town of St. Albans has about a $5 million budget. The police department eats up 25% of it. So it's a significant spend. And so, I think having eyes and ears and making sure we're getting our value out of our contract is part of this committee's job as well. And, I think as time goes on, I could see this committee wanting, things that I think you can go to the select board and talk about are, reviewing contracts when we go back out to bid when the contract ends. How do you want the RFPs to look like? What information do they need to submit? How do we go about hiring police officers who serve in this community? So on and so forth. So I think there's just a lot to question and everything and figure out our role there. But other than that, does anyone else have anything else they want to bring up at this time? Again, feel free to email me if there's other things you want raised. I know first meeting, I'm the type of person will sign off and 10 minutes later I'll be like, oh, I should have brought this up. So feel free to email me any concerns. But if there's nothing, I would take a motion to adjourn, and we can say I'll see you on April 14th.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Dave motions and Danielle second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all for coming out tonight, and look forward to getting this going with you all.